Hey guys, it's Gene. Today I'm going to be doing a quick playoffs preview for the quarterfinals of Draftarig's Season 5 playoffs. I'm going to be going through all 8 leagues, starting with the Teal League and working our way up to the Premier League, briefly touching on all of the matchups along the way, and we will get a look at the DLC's picks, and at the end I'll be making my own picks as well, so make sure to follow along and leave your picks in the comments. We'll start with the Teal League. The first matchup is the Aura Guardians, whose roster is in the top right corner, and the New York Nido Kings, who I'll get to in a minute, in the bottom left corner. Looking at the Aura Guardians, their S tier is Lucario Mega, which is a huge threat, provides lots of great priority and setup, and can be unpredictable as it can run effective physical and special sets. So this thing is nearly impossible to prepare for. They also have Iron Bundle, which gives good power and speed, and is another fast Pokemon along with Lucario. And for even more speed, they even have Electrode on the team. So there is a lot of speed on this roster. They have some setup options, possibly in Hatterene or Goodra, and Breloom. And then some really fun Pokemon near the bottom of their roster in Zoroark and Frostmoth, as well as good hazard support in Fortress. So this is overall a really solid team with really good speed, excellent wall breaking potential, and some setup threats. If we go down here to look at the Nidokings in the bottom left corner, you'll see they also have an S plus Pokemon in Kyurem White. This is one of the hardest hitting Pokemon in all of Draftarig. It also has reliable recovery in Roost and can just be an absolute menace. There's Slowking G, which can set Snow, which benefits Kyurem by boosting its defense, but he needs to be really careful that he doesn't give a defense boost to the Iron Bundle on the other side. Slowking G can also set up Trick Room, which might help him counter the speed of his opponent. Goldingo here might be his best option to try to answer Mega Lucario, but even still, it's a really big ask. Looks like both teams have some really solid options here. I'm excited to see how this game goes. Looking at our second matchup in Teal League, we have Time to Draft here in the black color with Chi-Yu as its S-, and the Carolina Incineroars here in the light blue with Kangaskhan Mega as their S-. These teams actually are really similar. It's kind of cool. So Time to Draft has Slowking, who can use Chilly Reception to set the snow, allowing Sandslash Alola to sweep. And the Carolina Incineroars have Ninetales Alola, which brings the snow with Snow Warning and can help Beartick sweep. So that's going to be a really interesting matchup to see if both teams bring snow, if neither teams bring snow, kind of how that plays out. That may well decide who wins this game. As I mentioned earlier, both teams have an S-. Chi-Yu brings a huge amount of firepower, and honestly, I don't really see very many switch-ins on the Incineroar's team. Meanwhile, the Incineroars have been using Blaziken very effectively all season, and I believe he's sitting number 2 in the MVP at the end of the regular season, so that's definitely something to watch out for. Now let's take a look at the picks. Okay, go ahead and take a look at the DLC's picks. As you can see in the first column, we have a 5-2 split with 5 people picking on the side of the Aura Guardians and only Sunflygon and Gabo picking on the side of the New York Nido Kings. But I'm actually going to go against the grain here and agree with Flygon and Gabo and say the Nido Kings are going to win this. I think that it's going to come down to Goldingo and Kyurem White just being too powerful, and too bulky with reliable recovery to handle. But we're going to see how that plays out. And in the second game, we also have a 5-2 split, this time in favor of the Carolina Incineroars. Only Flygon and Gavega are on the side of Time to Draft. Looks like Flygon's made a habit of picking underdogs early here. This time, I am going to side with the majority. I think the Carolina Incineroars are going to be able to find a way to win this. I've been a huge fan of how they've been able to use Blaziken effectively, but I cannot wait to see how the snow battle plays itself out. All right, let's move along to the Wellspring League. In our first matchup, we have the Beijing Bronzongs here in the top right corner with the yellow versus the Denver Dugongs, which is down here in the bottom left with Chi Yu and Shaman Sky on the start of their team. Let's start with the Beijing Bronzongs, though. They have a very scary combination of Fluttermane and Heatran, the reliable Landorus T. They've got Jirachi, and then a bunch of really good support and Bulkymons and Omastar as a sweeper possibility. Terra Water Whimsicott is also kind of cool. And then as we get down here to the Denver Dugongs, they also have an S- in Chi Yu. They have a Shaman Sky, which is a really fast and powerful threat, a Tapu Fini, and an Aegislash, as well as Mega Manectric at the top of their roster. And they also have some really good. There's a lot less bulk on this team, besides maybe Bastiodon, which is Terra Fighting to get rid of that terrible typing. But there is much more power on the side of the Denver Dugongs. However, I think that it's going to be really interesting to see how the Dugongs deal with Heatran, because that seems like as good an answer as there is to Chi Yu, potentially. Aegislash, on the other hand, might be able to help deal with Fluttermane using priority Shadow Sneak to hit it for super effective damage with its weak physical defense. So they both have good ways to handle the other team's S tier. So this should be another interesting matchup for us. In our other Wellspring matchup, we have the Heart Stealers here in the bottom left corner in purple, and we have the Edmonton Stantlers to the right of that in the light lime green. Let's start with the Heart Stealers, and wow, the top of this roster is ridiculous. They have the Big Turtle, which has been widely considered one of the most powerful Pokemon in our format. They have Dragapult, a draft Pokemon staple. Chien Pao, who is so strong it might get moved to an S tier in future seasons. And then some really good defensive Pokemon between Swampert and Talonflame. And even powerful mons like Iron Hands and Terra Fairy Gengar. That team has some ridiculous threats. On the other side, there is the Edmonton Stantlers. They've got Lunala, who is one of the Pokemon that if you can use it correctly and build a team around it, it will take you places. Cannot underestimate Lunala. It can do so many things well. It can be bulky with its ability Shadow Shield. It can run support. It can set up. It can do Trick Room. It can do a lot of different things. And then they continue that theme of flexibility by having Mew, kind of the jack of all trades. And then solid performers in Lycanroc Dust and in Kartana. And then one of Jay's specialties is Minior, the setup sweeper. So there's always a need to watch out for that. And interestingly, we've got Terra Stellar Lurantis, so both sides opted for Terra Stellar, which is pretty unique. Should be a fun one. I'm curious to see if Jay brings some setup threats or a trick room or how they're going to stop the crazy speed and power that's on the Heart Stealers. Should be fun. All right, as we move over to the DLC picks here for the Wellspring League, you can see that almost everybody is on the side of the Beijing Bronzongs. Just with that really powerful roster they've built, it's hard to pick against them. Goes being the lone person on the side of the Denver Dugongs. I am actually going to agree with the majority here and just say that the Heatran answer to Chi Yu is probably going to be too much to overcome, but they'll have to find a more creative way if the Denver Dugongs want to win that one. Over to the other semifinal match, we have another kind of lopsided result, just with all of the ridiculous top-tier threats here. I think I am actually going to go ahead and pick the upset here and take the Edmonton Stantlers to be creative and find a way to deal with all that speed and use Lunala to its fullest. So I will join the side of the underdogs here, the Edmonton Stantlers, for my pick. We move next to the Cornerstone League, and the first matchup is between the Criminal Kirbies, up here in yellow at the top left, versus ELS, also in yellow in the bottom right. And let's start with the Kirbies here. They opted for an S- in Palafin, who is a really strong, bulky water type with good priority once it transforms. They've got solid support options in Gliscor, Meowscarada for pivot. Aegislash is an all-around good Pokemon. Tinkaton can be a nuisance. And they've got some really fun electric types in Terra Ice, Electrode Hisui, and Mega Ampharos, as well as a wall in Toxapex. Then, as we move down here to the ELS side, there is Magearna, also an S- choice, Mega Latios, Manaphy, Greninja, and a Terrastellar Nidoking, allowing it to have really powerful coverage options. That is a threat. I really like the top of ELS's roster here. At the bottom, it looks like they mostly have some bulky things in Miltank and Tangela. They've got Sticky Web support in Ariados, which is nice. And I'll be curious to see how well this Nidoking with Terrastellar can do into the Criminal Kirby's team, as I don't see many resists for combination of Earth Power and Ice Beam for Gliscor. That should be really powerful in this matchup. The next matchup is one I'm most excited to see here in Cornerstone. We've got the Miami Hearth Flames here in the top left in the red versus Los, also in red here on the top, a little bit darker red, with Mega Metagross at the top. And this is another mirror match for weather. This is sun versus sun. Hearth Flame has Ninetales to set the sun, and Raging Bolt and Hearth Flame in particular can benefit from it. And Houndoom, of course. And on the other side, Los has Torkoal to set the sun, and they've got Venusaur, Infernape, and Roaring Moon, who really enjoy being in the sun, as well as Terrafire Zoroark H. So a lot of really fun games are being played here to see who can make the best use of the sun. Hearth Flame is a new addition this season to Draftarig, and has been really powerful in S-, and is very, very difficult to switch into. And if it can get up a Trailblaze, it can sometimes just win games on its own. On the other side, we've got an S+ in Mega Metagross, which is just bulky, fast, and powerful. It does it all and even has priority. Not something to be messed with. Also, there's some really big hard hitters in Infernape and Roaring Moon, especially when you get them in the sun. And Venusaur is also nothing to be laughed at under the sun with its chlorophyll ability. This one is one of the games I am most excited to watch. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. And as we move to the DLC picks, you can see that 5 DLCs are on the side of the Criminal Kirbies, whereas only Flygon and Storm are backing ELS. For me, I have to agree with Flygon and Storm here. I am going to back the ELS. I think their combination of Magearna and Megalodi is just so strong at the top of their roster that they're going to be hard to stop. And in the Sun game, where I just have no idea what's going to happen, we have 5 DLCs on the side of Los, as only Awesome Pie and Storm have picked the heat. But yet again, I am going to go for the underdog here and join in on the Heat side. I think that Hearthflame is going to be the difference in this game and might be able to sweep after a Trailblaze. But honestly, this game could go either way. This has been the hardest pick for me so far. Let's go now from my Hearthflame pick to the Hearthflame League. And in our first matchup, we have the Too Slow for You in the top right corner in purple versus Chiming Paradise, also in purple, 3 from the bottom right. And if we start with Too Slow for You, this team has a crazy amount of bulk. There's Ting Lu, one of the fattest things in the game. There's Skeledirge to prevent setup. There's Peach there, which is extremely physically defensive. Cradilly has more bulk. Quillfish has Intimidate and more bulk. Bastiodon, more bulk. And it also has a massive amount of hazards between Glimmora and Bastiodon and Quillfish H and Ting Lu. The hazard stacking is a really big threat from this team. On the other side, we have Charming Paradise down here in the purple at the bottom. They have Iron Valiant, which is a really strong Pokemon, super versatile. Iron Treads will be really important because it's a rapid spinner, but not only that, but Peach, the spin blocker on the other side, is weak to ground type, so Iron Treads might be a key player in this matchup. They also have Latios Mega, which is always super powerful, and they have Ogerpon Hearthflame, the mascot of this league. So a lot of really big threats on both sides, more of an offensive team in the Chiming Paradise versus a more of a defensive team in Too Slow for You. And in our second Hearthflame League matchup, we have Sachin & Co. up at the top in white versus the Twin City Wildings in the bottom left in green. And we've got two different themes here. We have Sun of Sachin & Co. with Torkoal and Walking Wake, Ceruledge, and Incineroar versus the Electric Terrain of the Twin City Wildings in Tapu Koko, Iron Jugulus, and Iron Moth. Both can be really powerful for your team. We also have some just generally really strong Pokemon in each team. The Twin City Wildings have Mega Gallade and Magearna, who are both some of the best S tier and Mega respectively. And then Sachin & Co. has the Big Turtle, the S+, who has been one of the strongest Pokemon across the leagues. And interestingly, they've got Palmot for that Revival Blessing, and Mega Banette, which can get up to some shenanigans with Prankster, and also now has Poltergeist, making it much more powerful. And as we hop over to the DLC picks here, you'll see that we have our 8th picker, CC, has made his picks now as well. And immediately we have a 4-4 split. DLCs are really torn on who's going to win this one, so it should be a tight match. I'm going to break this tie and throw my support behind Chiming Paradise here. Make it 5-4. And in the other game, we have 7 picks for Sachin & Co. and only Goes is picking the Twin City Wildings. I will make it another pick for Sachin & Co. here, and Goes remains the only person selecting the Wildings at this point. Let's see if he's right. Now we're going to hop up a tier here and start talking about the Winged King League. In our first matchup, in teal right here in the middle of the top row, we have the Dimension Hoopas. And in the bottom right corner in yellow, we have Regidemption. Now, right off the bat, the Dimension Hoopas have some massive threats. They have Dragapult, Iron Valiant, Mega Metagross, and Gliscor are just all incredible Pokemon in drafts. And Terrafighting Lycanroc is an interesting one as well. On Regidemption, this is one of my favorite teams. They've got basically all of the Regis here. Regieleki, Regidrago, Registeel, Regice, Regigigas, Regirock. They also have Ursaluna Blood Moon, who packs a huge punch. and Annihilate, who's always been a really interesting Pokemon. I also really like Quillfish Hisui, so this is definitely one of my favorite teams that we've covered so far. The other Winged King matchup gets us Fruit Cookers, here third from the top in kind of that brown color, and Scarlet Sun near the right side in red. And I'll start with Scarlet Sun because it's an interesting team. They've got, well, as you might expect by the name, Sun in Mega Charizard. Why? But they don't really have very many Pokemon that abuse it. In fact, I'm hardly seeing any that appreciate the Sun besides Mega Charizard himself. Whereas Fruit Cookers actually will get some benefit from Chi-Yu in the Sun. Fruit Cookers also have Dracovish, which hits notoriously hard, and Mega Heracross, again, another hard-hitting Pokemon. That team just seems like it has a lot of wall breakers put together that are going to be hard for the Scarlet Sun to answer. I'll be very curious to see what they cook up for this game, but you can never be out of it when you have King Gambit on your side. And taking a look at the DLC picks here, you'll see that we again have a 4-4 split between the Regidemption and the Dimension Hoopas, with Goze, Gavega, Awesome Pie, and Battlestorm picking the Dimension Hoopas, and Flygon, Alex, Gabo, and CC picking Regidemption. As much as Regidemption is my favorite team, and I will be cheering for them, I have to pick the Dimension Hoopas in this match. And on the other side, we have Gavega and Gabo being the only ones picking the Scarlet Sun, and everybody else picking the Fruit Cookers, and I'm going to join them. I think the Fruit Cookers can take this with all those big, powerful threats that they have on their side. Starting with the Iron Serpent League, we have two Spirit-based teams in our first matchup. We have Spirit Leaf in the pink, and the Lavender Town Spirits in the purple. These are some awesome team logos and themes. I'll start with the Spirits here, the Lavender Town Spirits, and they are yet another Sun team. I'm kind of seeing a theme here coming up from the bottom half of the leagues all the way up through Iron Serpent so far, as there's been a lot of Sun teams. They've got actually Terra Grass Ninetales to set the Sun, which is a unique one. They also have Prankster Klefki, which can manually set it if they need. They've got at S- Ogerpon Hearthflame, which has just been such an incredible breaker, and I imagine is even more scary in the Sun. They've got Great Tusk and Raging Bolt, both of whom benefit from the Sun. And they also have some generically good and bulky mons like Tornadus T and Skuntank and Hariyama, for example. And then looking over at Spirit Leaf, they have an S Plus in Mega Lucario, who is just horrifyingly powerful. They have Slowking G, who might set some snow in this game to kind of fight back against the Sun, so that's something to watch for. Could also set Trick Room to counteract some of those fast Pokemon in the Sun. They've got Tapu Bulu for the grassy terrain. Rotom Wash, who's always good. Greninja, who can be a real threat, especially if it gets going and gets a kill to get some boosts. And they've got Oricorio, which will be loved by some of our DLCs. I'm wondering if Pi is on the side of Spirit Leaf just for that pick alone. We'll have to see when we get to his picks here in just a minute. In our other Iron Serpent matchup, we have in the bottom left corner London on Dondozo, and two to the side of it, Cute Hands. And I'll start with the Dondozo team here. It looks like we are seeing our first Sand team in the playoffs. We've got Hippowdon as the Sand Setter. We've got Houndstone, who has Sand Rush and Last Respects for devastating damage, and Dracovish, who also has Sand Rush and has Vicious Rend as another nuke. They also have Chi-Yu, so just a bunch of Pokemon that can just come in and click a ridiculously powerful attack. And then the rest of their team is kind of filled out with some bulky pivots like Slowbro and Cobalion and Electros, as well as hazards between Scolipede and Glimora, which is actually Terra Flying Glimora to get rid of that quadruple ground weakness. On the other side, we have Cute Hands, who went S- as well with Fluttermane. They've got the ever-threatening Baxcalibur, and a really good thing for them this matchup will be Excadrill will be able to benefit from the Dondozo's sand and get the speed boost of its own. And kind of like in the last matchup, um, the Cute Hands have Slowking, which can set Snow to counteract some of the sand and be a way to prevent that. They also have big threats in the form of Swellow and Lilligant. Both can be very powerful using Stab Terra or Terra Fire in Lilligant's case. Um, and so they have a good mixture of power and bulk on the Cute Hand side. Looking now at the DLC's pick, we can see that actually most of the DLCs are on the Lavender Town Spirits in the first matchup. I thought just drafting the Oricorials alone would be enough to get Awesome Pie's vote, but I guess not. But not to fear, I'm going to make an upset pick here, as I think Spirit Leaf will have the edge in this matchup. And looking at the other matchup here between the London on Dondozo and Cute Hands, looks like everybody but CC has Cute Hands in this matchup. I personally have my own bias for sand teams, so I will be joining CC in picking the Dondozos here in this matchup. We move now into the second tier league, the Victory League, and our very first matchup here is one of the most anticipated rematches of the season. In the bottom left, we have in red the Goes Gains, and right next to them in green, we have Goes, the coach of the Austrian Anchors. And in this match already, Goes Gains got quite a bit of RNG and was able to swing the battle in their favor, but it's going to be hard to replicate that luck again this time. So, on one hand, we have the Austrian Anchors, who has some sand synergy between Tyranitar and Dracozolt. And then they've got some things that look like they could benefit from Psychic Terrain, like Iron Crown and maybe Sneasler. And they picked an S- in Genesect. That's always a big threat. And of course, their mascot, the Anchor right here, who is terrifying to me, and I don't want to spend any more time talking about. On the other side, the Goes Gains, we have another Pokemon that's traumatized me in the past with Tinkaton, so I'm really just kind of over all of the Steel types in this game. They decided to go for an S- as well in Palafin, and Garchomp does have Sand Veil, so can get some evasion from Tyranitar's Sand, so that could work in his advantage. Should be an interesting battle here. We'll see if Goes is able to get his revenge or not. In the second matchup here, we have Electivire and Friends in yellow up top, and at the very bottom right, the Antarctic Heatrans. So I'll start with Electivire and Friends, and this looks to be a bit of an electric terrain team. They've got Tapu Koko along with Iron Moth and Iron Leaves to benefit from the terrain. But in addition, they have the S Plus Palkia, which is massively powerful and not to be messed with. They also have classically good Pokemon like Landorus T and Skarmory, as well as Muk-A, which is kind of an underrated Mon. Down at the bottom here, the Heatrans also decided to go for an S Plus in Kyurem White, and it should be noted that Kyurem White's Freeze Dry will be quadruple super effective against the Palkia on the other side. The Heatrans have kind of a hazard control here, because they've got Goldingo to prevent hazard removal, and they've got Samurott H to get up hazards with Ceaseless Edge, as well as Mega Diancie with Magic Bounce to keep hazards off of their own side. And then they have some really powerful threats in obviously Kyurem White, in Zapdos G, one of my personal favorites, and in Terra Fairy Zarude, which has been dominant for the Heatrans so far this season. This should be a really exciting match, and I wonder how it's going to play out with electric terrain versus hazards. As we look at the DLC picks here, it looks like only 2 DLCs have picked against Goes and have gone with the Goes Gains. One of those being Goes himself, picking against his own team. The other CC is picking for the Goes Gains. I, on the other hand, am unable of picking against the anchor, so I will be putting my support for the Austrian anchors here. That is my pick. On the other side, we have everyone but Goes Again, and this time Battlestorm, picking the Antarctic Heatran. And I again am going to go with the favorites here. I think the Hazards have the edge over the Electric Terrain team, and I think the Heatrans will be the team to advance onto the semifinals. And finally, we've made it all the way to the top at the Premier League. And in the first matchup in the top right corner in blue, we have my team, the San Francisco 49 Tails, versus one spot over in green, the Lincoln Larvatars. And this is a fun matchup for a couple of reasons. I'll start with the Larvatars. They, of course, have Iron Valiant, one of the most generically great draft Pokemon available. They also have Mega Metagross, just a bruising, fast, hard-hitting S+ Mon. And they have a really powerful Regenerator core in Alomomola and Audino, both of which have Wish, allowing him to pass to big threats like Mega Metagross, which don't have recovery of his own. There is also, makes it kind of fun, Scizor versus Mega Scizor in this matchup, and what everyone's been waiting for, the F-tier Arena Trap matchup of Trapinch versus Diglett. So if we're lucky, we'll get to see that battle unfold. On the 49 Tails side, like I said, there is Mega Scizor and Diglett. There's also another S+ Mon here in Palkia, and as well as powerful Pokemon like Muckaloa, Inspectriere, and Azumarill. In the second matchup, here in the bottom left in blue, we have the Lumos City Legendaries versus the all the way in the bottom right in orange, Cambridge Camerups. And this is actually going to be a rematch of what happened last week when the Camerups were able to get a win over the Legendaries. I'll start with the Legendaries team, and this is what's been kind of customary for Jelly's teams, where he's got both Chien Pao and Kyurem White, two very, very powerful Ice-type attacking Pokemon. He also got Dragapult, a fantastic Draftmon, and has a really interesting defensive core in Empoleon and Fezandipindi, as well as Slowbro. On the other side, with the Camerups, there is a little bit of sand synergy between Tyranitar and Houndstone and Stoutland. There's also an S+ Pokemon in Mega Lucario, and other big threats such as Raging Bolt, Tornadus T. We'll see what they bring differently from last week, but in the previous matchup, Tapu Bulu was used to great effect for the Camerups to help secure the win. And as we look at the final DLC picks, we're going to see that 6 of the 8 have gone ahead and picked the Camerups to win back-to-back against the Legendaries. Awesome Pie and Battlestorm are the only 2 that actually ended up picking the Legendaries. Just a disclaimer here, I have a lot of bias in both of these picks as I practice with the Legendaries and the other one is my team. But I am going to pick the Legendaries. I think that they'll be able to bounce back after losing last week and get their revenge in the playoffs. And in the second game here, we have only 2 DLCs picking the Larvatars to win, and that is Sunflygon and Battlestorm, again with the upset pick for Battlestorm. And it's kind of awkward picking in my own game, but what am I going to pick against myself? So I am going to hop on board and say that the 49 Tails will be making the semifinals again. So thanks everybody so much for watching. Please remember to leave your picks down below. We'll be starting next week with kind of a tracker to see how well everyone did in their picks. And good luck to everybody who's playing this week. See you soon. Bye.